It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for joining. I'm very, very excited for today. I hope you all are as well. My name is Fatima. I am a financial coach and the founder of Finance Girlie, which is a management tool, money management tool for Muslim women. And my educational background is in psychology. And some of you might be wondering, how did you get into money from that? But after I graduated college, got into my first job and started wondering, well, how do I manage this money? Because we don't learn that in our school system. So that led me into a rabbit hole of learning about money management, and then from there pursuing a certification in financial coaching. And that's how we got here. So Hannah, if you don't mind sharing the slides, then we can get started from there. Thank you, Sanam. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that when you get your first job and you don't know how to manage that paycheck and to reach those financial goals that you dream of from a very young age. Right. Okay, so to get started, we're going to talk about I want to get a feel of the room to see how people feel about money, different questions. So if you could scan this barcode or click on the link. Let me see if I can put the link in the chat here. And please answer the first question on there. Just getting a feel of the room. When you hear money, what are some of the emotional responses you get? So let me share that on my screen or put the link in the chat. Anxiety. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. Okay. Type your responses in. Are folks able to see that? So I see building, blessing, debt, fear, growth, wealth. I love that. Alhamdulillah. There's a wide range as we often see. Risk can't make much. Okay, it's very common, especially right now in this current economy. A lot of people are feeling like that. So you're not alone. Fear, uncertainty, growth, blessing, building wealth. Okay. Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds and then we'll go on to the next one. Making too much bad be a trial instead of a ni'mah. Good. Yeah, it could go both ways. Yep. Oh, not yet. We're still on the poll everywhere slide. Okay, and then the next question here I want to ask is, what is one poor financial habit that you'd like to break? And we all have them, right? We all have a tendency to either save too much and not even want to spend our money, or spend too much and not even save, or be super have a great risk appetite and want to risk all our money versus having a very, very low risk appetite and just wanting to hold on to every single dollar that we have because we fear losing it. So what are some of those financial habits that you have? Spending too much or anything that it might be for you, or impulse purchases. Just get a feel of some of those. I'll tell you, what are folks struggling with when it comes to managing their money well? Want to invest somewhere where expectable good returns. Don't track my finances because I'm scared to know the reality. That's a very, very common one. You'd be surprised. But being in the dark, right, about what the thing could be. Okay. Okay. And then the next one that I'm going to ask is, what does financial freedom look like to you? What does financial freedom look like to you? So think about your dream, right? And don't put any restrictions on it. But if you were to dream, and that dream must become true, inshallah, which it will, what does that look like for you? Let's get some responses in. Okay. No debt, having a savings. Okay. Okay. All right. So I want to start here because I want us to kind of see what some of the challenges are, what our weak points are, and what we're actually working towards. So that as throughout this workshop, you can keep that in mind. What am I actually working towards, and what do I actually want to get? All right. So let's go on to the next one. I think Sina had something in the chat. Get out of debt, have enough for my children, donate as much as possible. Yes. Good, good, good. Okay, we can go to the next slide, please. All right, so here are the basic pillars of a solid financial plan. And these are just general. Of course, there's some that I've left out, but the basic ones are, one is a budget. And a budget, you could call it a spending plan or whatever you want to call it. But essentially, the purpose of it is to serve as a monthly plan to help you reach your goals. So on a monthly basis, you're taking into account, what am I doing to work towards that bigger financial picture that I have of getting out of debt or investing or becoming a millionaire or saving enough for retirement? What am I doing on a monthly, and actually taking into account what you're doing incrementally to get to those goals. The second one would be minimizing debt. The problem with a lot of different types of debt, and most of them, is that they take away from your margin. So, right, if you are earning 4,000, but a good chunk of that is going towards a car loan or student loan, credit card debt, it's really chopping away from the money that you would otherwise be using towards saving, investing, or even just spending it to enjoy or giving it in charity, right? Depending on what your goals are. The next one would be saving. We hear this so many times, but I can't tell you when it's going to rain, but chances are it is going to rain. So having an emergency fund in place for when it does rain, it serves like as an umbrella, right? So it's protecting you from getting off track with your financial goals or having to borrow money and even put yourself in a worse situation. It's having that savings in place. The next one would be another type of saving, which is a sinking fund. So this is something that you're saving towards something. So let's say, for example, a hedge fund. If you want to go for hedge in 2 years, then starting to save for it now so that you have that in place when the time comes. Or if you want to buy a new car, if you want to save for a vacation, whatever that might be, that's another type of savings plan that you could work towards. And the next one is investing. And this is where the real wealth is built. Wealth is not built through saving, right? Because saving is there as a cushion, and working towards more short-term things. But wealth is where the real investing is where the real wealth is built, because you want to get a return on your money, and that's where you would pass on that generational wealth if that's your goal, or having a lovely retirement, or even before that, right? Investing, compounding, growth. That's where the real wealth is built. And then the last one, this is my personal favorite, which is giving, because as Muslims we know that charity does not decrease from wealth, right? The more you give, inshallah, you have barakah in your money, and the more you would get in the future. Bismillah. All right, next slide. All right, so now we're going to talk about a goal. I want this workshop to be very practical for you all, and I'm not going to tell you what your goal should be, but you know what situation you're in right now. You know the picture of your finances, or the one that you're probably avoiding, right? So think about what your financial goal is for the next quarter. So that is until right now we're in July. So by September 30th, what is that financial goal that you'd really like to hit? So just in the next 3 months, where would you like to see yourself financially? And it doesn't have to be a massive change, but just something that's going to give you progress towards that bigger goal that you have in the next 5 or even 10 years. So I want you to write that down. We do have this we do have this. I have this acronym over here that I'm sure a lot of you have heard often, which is the SMART goals. It doesn't have to be as specific and nicely put together, but just a goal that you have. And I'll have you all share it in the poll everywhere in just a second. But think about that, and then we will go from there. Aisha said she can't see the slides. Okay. What are some of those financial goals that you have? I can't either. Oh, can people not see the slides? Same. Hannah, I think a lot of people can not see the slides, as they're saying in the chat. Okay, so it's a mixed response that we're getting. Some people can and others cannot. Okay. All right. Well, we do have I'm going to put the poll everywhere questions in the chat, or the link in the chat, so that you can see the next slide here, which is your financial goal for the next quarter. And let me pull it up here so we can look through it. Okay, what do people think? So we have building investment accounts, figuring out ways to invest, investing 1K of savings. Okay. What else? What are you guys thinking? What are some of your goals? And for the person who said, figuring out ways to invest, what is there anything specific that you'd want to do? So is it that you're going to take a class on investing or halal investing, or what are you going to do? What specific thing are you going to do? Save to buy a house. Just started working on a contract role, 50-year-old widow. Okay. And also the save to buy a house. How much would you like to get saved? So let's get those numbers solid. Pay off my debt on at least one of my credit cards by 2-3. Oh, but you mean like pay off 2/3 of the credit card debt amount? Yes, to begin investing, and where to go? Trusted orgs. Okay, good. What else? What are some of those solid goals that you have? I also figure out if I can afford a home or is purchasing land better. Okay. So with that one, again, what's the specific thing that you're going to do? What's the actual goal? Is it learning? So sitting with a professional or meeting with a few realtors and saying, okay, what's the housing market like? What are my options right now? And going to check out 2 pieces of land. So something more solid that you can actually measure and see, okay, I did meet it, I did not, or I did not meet that goal. What are some of those things that you do? Let's give it a few more seconds and then we'll move on, inshallah. Okay. Yes, I think it's about knowing where to start. Knowing where to start, usually what that translates to is education, right? Stable credit in my bank account. Yes, so it's usually when it's like, I don't know where to start, it's an education piece, right? So that might be, I need to take this course, or I need to watch a video on the specific thing that I want to learn, not more of a general thing, but a specific concept that I'm trying to work towards, or it's I need to meet with a professional in that space that can give me more details. That's what that would translate into. Okay, great. So the reason why I wanted you guys to start with this is because I do want everyone to have this goal in mind as we're going towards the rest of the presentation in creating that plan for yourself. All right, next slide, please. Or next two slides. The next one's the poll everywhere. Next one. All right, so now we're going to talk about a budget. And I'm going to be using the terminology budget, but it's kind of, let's think about this, no, the slide 7. Let's think about it as a spending plan or a money management plan. So when I say budget, I'm talking about a tool that you're going to use to work towards that goal that you have in mind by managing your money effectively. So it's a proactive tool. Let's keep that's a very key word here, because you're not reacting after you get the money. You're being proactive because you're setting the agenda before you actually even get paid with your paycheck or whatever other source of income that you have. And here are some common myths about budgeting. I've heard a lot of these, and I won't read every single one of them, but you can go through them yourself. So if you believe any of these or have heard it before, they are all myths for the kind of budget that we're referring to throughout this workshop. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so here, the slide 9, please. So we're going to talk about 3 money management systems on a monthly basis. The first one is called the zero-based budget. And with this budget, what you do is every single dollar of your income is going to get a job. We don't have any unemployed dollar bills from our income, right? So if you're earning like $4,000, then you're going to allocate a job to every single one of those dollar notes. So whether that's rent, that could be your needs, it could be your wants, so it could be shopping. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're spending it on needs or you're saving it or you're investing it, but they need to have a job, whatever that job is, and that's up to you to determine. Okay, no problem. Yes, that's very helpful to know. Thank you, Amna. So every single one of those dollar bills has a specific job that you're going to assign to it. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next slide, please. Okay, the next system is the 50-30-20 system. So this system states that 50% of your income goes to your needs, the 30% goes to your wants, and 20% goes to your savings. So the example is there with what it would look like if you have a $44,000 income. Now, this system is great, but it does not work for most people that are either up or below the median income. So if you earn a lot, 50% would not really, you don't need 50% of your income to go towards your needs. So you would need to adjust it based on your income, of course. But if you're earning a little too, you're earning like very little money, then your needs might actually be like 75%, right? And 50% is not a realistic number. So this might not apply to most people's budgets or systems. Okay, and then next slide, please. And then this last one is the envelope system. So with this system, what this looks like is that once you get your income, you take out everything in cash. And there are different ways of doing it. Some people have like actual wallets that have all these different pockets. But the idea is that you have the cash in the different pockets for what their needs are. So you might have one pocket that says rent, and you put the exact amount that you need for rent. Another one that says groceries, the exact amount for that. And another one that says fund money, the exact amount for that. Another one that says savings, the exact amount for that. And you might put that in a piggy bank or a lockbox, and the list goes on. So based on the amount of money that you put in that specific category is the only thing you're going to use. So that's another cash or money management system that entails like using in physical cash. And there's a lot of psychology behind this. It's super fascinating. for anyone that's interested, but that's the idea of it. Okay, and then next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, this one. So now take a second. We've gone through 3 different money management systems. Which one would you like to try out? No, this one's fine. This slide is fine. So just write that down for a second. Think about your next goal in the next 3 months, and which one of these systems would you plan to implement for the next 3 months to get you to that goal? Setting up the percentages, okay. All right, next slide, please. I think the numbers, okay. The combination. Oh, Simran, I'd love to hear how you plan to combine those, percentage and envelope. Okay, yeah, that's a good way to combine them. So you'd actually take out the percentage that you're allocating to each one and having that. Yeah, that's smart. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so now let's talk about how to create a money management system that you can use seamlessly, right? If you're like me and you don't like actually doing the nitty gritty of it and all the details and how much time it takes, which at some point it won't take that much time, but especially in the beginning, it's going to require a little bit of detail and time to dedicate to it. Here are some of the 4 things that you could do. One is to create a budget, right? So whichever of the 3 systems that you like to do is actually doing that before you get paid. As we said, it's a proactive plan. So there are different softwares and apps, and I have a resources slide later on with more specifics. But you create that before your income actually comes through. That will be the first step. The second one, next slide. This one, a lot of jobs would allow you to do this, which is to adjust your direct deposit. So you might want to meet with your HR manager or your whoever your administrative person is and ask them, can I adjust my actual take-home pay that gets deposited into my spent checking account? So what that would look like is, for example, let's use the $4,000 income for a second. If you say, first thing is I'm going to invest into my retirement. So you always want to pay yourself first in most cases. If you have the ability, if you're in a place where you can actually do that, is you pay yourself first and say, I'm going to invest, let's say $500 this every month, right? So that money goes directly to your retirement before it even comes to you. So that's completely taking care of your goal. You're paying your future self first, and you're in track to hit that amount that you want. The second thing is you say, okay, the next $500, I want that to go into my savings account directly. It's not coming to my checking, because for some of us, when it comes into the checking throughout the month, we're like, oh, you know what, let me just go to the mall. I've been saving for all these months, and inshallah, this time I can take a break. And you spend even more than you intended, and you fall off track. That can go directly. So some employers, again, they would allow you to be able to adjust the direct deposit amounts to spread them across different bank accounts or investment accounts that you have set up. And then the last one is your checking account. The remainder would go into that. And that's where the budget will be based on that, right? Because the others are already taken care of. You have it directly. You're paying for your future, or you're investing in your future. You're investing towards unexpected expenses, and now you're enjoying the rest of it for your daily expenses and the like. Okay, next one, please. And this one, for anyone that's able to automating your bill payments, you'd be surprised how many businesses would be actually willing to work with you to adjust your bill due dates. So they might change the auto pay from the first of the month through the 15th, right? Just so that you're able to have that flexibility. And don't have all your bills due at one time if that's something that you don't want to do. So that also takes away from you manually going in and adjusting your payment, how much of it is going to each different system on a monthly basis. Okay, next slide, please. And this one's very important. So a budget, we said it's proactive. You said it before the month, but things happen, things go left or right throughout the month. So regularly checking it. It doesn't have to be 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Sometimes it's just taking 2 minutes out of your day, like once a week or every few days to check, okay, what has happened? How are things? Am I still on track? Because again, we have this goal that we want to meet in 3 months, and things could happen that will take us away from that. But catching those discrepancies when they occur is very important and can help you pivot if needed. Okay. All right. Next slide. All right. So now let's get to the fun part. What is your action plan? So you have your goal in mind. Let's think about some of those specifics. Now, we've talked about the different money management systems. You've chosen your favorite one. And now you're going to write down what your goal is. Your goal, whatever it was that you wrote earlier, why is this goal important to you? So give the purpose of the goal and actually write that down. Why you want to hit this goal. Okay, and you can share it in the chat, inshallah. I'm gonna ask the questions. Are you saying to review after you set up that system? Yes. So you're reviewing to see if throughout the month the actual reality of what's happening is in line with what you planned for, if that makes sense. So you're checking, okay, I said I was going to spend 200 on groceries, but maybe my grocery bill was 250. Well, then that means I need to adjust something. Or if it goes and ends up being lower than you thought it would be. So yeah. Okay. So write down, why is this goal important to you? Yes, exactly. To stick to the system, but also to adjust, right? Because sometimes one of the things that I've seen a lot of people struggle with is we have this expectation. We have this is the budget I've set and it has to be like that. But things do happen. And let's say, for example, one month your water bill is $50 more than you expected it to be. You can't deny that reality. So you need to adjust, right? So that's why you need to check in regularly. So you can catch the problem when it happens. Okay, why is this goal important to you is the first thing. The second thing is thinking about that barrier or those challenges or habits that are going to prevent you from reaching that goal. So if you have a spending habit, whenever I go, every Saturday I like to hang around by the mall, then that's probably something that you need to change. You know, like what are some of those challenges that you know of yourself that this could potentially prevent me from reaching my goal? So writing that down. Just one, by the way. We just want to focus on one thing at a time because that increases our chances of actually doing what we said we're going to do. So my why is not to stress about money. Yes, that's a very, very common feeling, especially in today's economy. There's a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety around what the future holds, right? Okay. And then the next thing would be to how would I remind myself each time I fall off track? So am I going to think about my why? Because when you have a solid why, it's always a good way to check yourself back into doing what you said you were going to do, right? Because if your why is like Amna said in the chat, to not feel stressed about money, then you'd remember, okay, is this worth spending this extra money right now or not putting it where I said I was going to put it right now? If the payoff is I'm actually going to get to a place where, inshallah, I'm not going to be worried about money anymore because I have enough. I see the numbers and I'm very content. So thinking about that reminder that you'd give yourself when the time comes. And then the last one is one that you definitely cannot skip, is who's going to hold me accountable, right? Because there are some times, and it happens to all of us, even myself, where we just in a moment where we're just like, I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. But who is the person that I can call to say, hey, this was the goal that I shared with you. And right now I'm at the mall and I'm seeing this really nice sale at Victoria's Secret or wherever it might be, H&M. And I feel like I just want to get that. It's just this amount. And we can talk ourselves out of anything. I mean, the human mind is just amazing. We'll justify anything that we want to justify. Um, in a way that makes sense to us, right? Who is that person that I'm gonna call when in that moment when I want to make that impulse purchase, or when I'm in that moment wherein I just want to save more than I said I was gonna save? Because some people's problem is actually the opposite. They save too much and they don't enjoy their money at all, right? And at some point they even burn out and they don't enjoy, and it just goes down another rabbit hole. So if your goal is, I'm actually going to save a little bit more, I'm going to save a little bit less, who is that person when you say, oh, let me just save this extra $100? That person's going to tell you, no, you need to go out shopping. Let's go. I'm going to pick you up. Who is that person that you're going to go to keep you accountable? I have a travel impulse. Interesting. I'd love to hear more about that. I'd love to hear more about that. I'll get back to that when we get to the Q&A section, because I'm thinking about traveling. There's so many steps to actually spend money on the travel, right? So we'll get to that, inshallah. So write your plan. This is something that you're going to create. So you've already had your plan. Okay, let's go on. I think we're going to skip a couple of slides because there's okay, let's go. It's going to be the same thing. Let's skip a couple of slides, inshallah. Next. Okay, so here are some of the problems that you can anticipate. And there are more than this, but I've just summarized it into 3 of the most common that I've heard. One is not planning for emergencies. Again, like I said, the budget, we're creating it beforehand. And when the month actually comes through, certain things might come up. And it doesn't need to be as big as an emergency of like, oh, your engine broke down, which requires you to dip into your emergency fund, which is what it's there for. But it's something that's small, right? It might be one day someone came out of town and you guys had to go out and you spend more money on eating out because you're trying to be a nice host than you anticipated. So stuff like that, I would always encourage you to create a category within your money management system for miscellaneous on a monthly basis, right? Because something always comes up. Or it might be a speeding ticket, right? I got a ticket last week. So that's something I should have planned for, but I couldn't see coming, right? So having that miscellaneous category of a couple of dollars, 100, 150, 200, to just catch up with those little ankle biters that come out throughout the month. Okay, next slide. This would be not sticking to the budget. And I think going back to some of us that love to be perfect all the time, we would create this high expectation of ourselves that doesn't reflect the reality. So one of the things that are encouraged in order to avoid this is actually looking at your calendar. What does next month look like? If I'm going to be traveling next month, chances are I'm going to spend more money on eating out. I'm going to spend more money on fun time. I'm going to spend more money on X, Y, and Z. Or if I have an annual subscription that's renewing, okay, I do need to account for that in my money management system for next month specifically. It's not every single month, but those one-off transactions that you would expect to see is something to take account for so that you don't fall off on your plan that you've already created. Okay. And then the next slide, please. All right. And this one is being realistic with your goals. So focusing on one thing and one thing only, and having grace, especially when you're starting with this. If it's something that you absolutely hate, you hate facing the reality of your financial situation, have a lot of grace for yourself in the beginning, especially in the first 3 months. It takes about 3 months to get used to building this new habit, especially when it comes towards building money and being responsible. So having a realistic expectation of yourself, extending that grace when you fall off, and just saying, okay, I fell off today. I said I wasn't going to buy that coffee on my way to work. And I'm not telling people what to do. I'm just saying, just using some examples that I've heard a lot. I said I was not going to buy that coffee. I was not going to go to lunch outside, or I was not going to spend so much money on eating out, whatever it might be. Having grace with yourself, and when you fall off track, getting back up, because again, your why is so strong that it's worth it for you. Okay. Next. All right, and here are some of the resources that I would recommend. We have the halal investing options. These are all owned by Muslims, and they're doing a fantastic job. The next one is a couple of money management tools. The last one's owned by a Muslim as well. And in these books, if you want to learn a bit more about some of the details, the first one, Know Yourself, Know Your Money. And the last one, Total Money Makeover, is by Dave Ramsey. The reason I put a disclaimer there are a lot of Christian focused like the Bible is quoted a lot. So I think as Muslims, I just love to put that disclaimer there to be wary of it when it's mentioned, and in any of the other books if it comes up. But these are some of the books and tools that I've used personally and worked with, most of them, to see to better manage myself. What's my favorite money management tool? It's Every Dollar, because it's the first one wherein it's a zero-based budgeting system. So personally, that's been my favorite so far. But the other ones are pretty good. And some people, if you're really a math nerd, you might love a good old spreadsheet, and that's okay. It's whatever works for you, right? Whatever works for you and actually allows you to reach those goals. That's what's important. Okay, next slide. Right, so what questions do you all have? We got a lot of questions. Is there going to be a training on how to invest and use the apps? I'd love to talk about investing. I mean, that could be a completely different workshop. Inshallah, I can talk to Hannah about that later on. But yes, in terms of how to invest, what to even look for in these tools, what numbers to look at, how to evaluate an investment, like looking at the past track record, some of those factors, definitely. A lot could be done in that, inshallah. I feel like I'm so illiterate with money. A lot of people can feel like that. You're not alone. I mean, we have this, our education system doesn't do such a great job at educating us on how to manage money. So I'm 37 and never paid a bill. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Amna. I'm sorry to hear that. But it's not too late. I mean, taking that first step to just come to this workshop and to ask some questions and be so like participate so much. Um, it's a really good first step. Okay. What has been your favorite investment vehicle? Oh, that's a good question. So I for me it depends on where I am right now. So I've invested a lot in just my retirement fund. That's where my primary investment has gone to. But the secondary form of investment has been the tool that we're working on with Finance Girlie. So that's been my favorite, of course, because it's a passion of mine. So that's where my other focus is when it comes to investment. So let's see here. I hope that answers your question, Amina. So I'm going to go through the questions. We did get some as well that were sent prior. Are you on Instagram or any social media? Yes, so my most active is LinkedIn. We also do have Instagram that we recently created. So I'll put our handle in the chat. And we're sending a lot of information there, educating people. So let's see. Let's see how many questions I can go through. And yes, I would go a little bit over if needed, inshallah. So I hope you all don't mind. Never paid a bill. So I'm not going back to yours. It's going back to the concept of grace, right? So taking that one system that you have in the next 3 months, what is that one thing that you want to do? Do you want to learn how to? What are all the bills I need to pay? Just writing that down. That's a huge step. That's a huge step because now you have something under control. You know what all the bills are, when they're coming in, and how am I even going to pay them? So that could be a goal for the next 3 months. So let me call this company. Let me call that company. I know we have light, so there's a light bill. I live somewhere, so there's a whatever it might be, renting or home that you own. There's a bill that comes with that. So just writing those down is a huge, huge step because you have control. And a lot of us, we don't feel like we're in control of our money, and we feel like it's happening to us rather than we're being proactive and actually managing and controlling it, right? So that would be a great first step. I'm a widow and I need to buy a house. Just started working. Okay. So what's your goal for the next 3 months, Sadia? If you want to, if you don't mind sharing that, and we can go from there, inshallah. Okay, which one? Any recommendations on how to find a financial planner? Is that necessary? Okay, so Farheen, very good question. So a financial planner, yes, I would definitely recommend working with a financial planner at a certain point, because especially when it comes to investing, because they're able to look throughout all your entire financial picture and go through even like the specific investments that you have. And because of you share your goals with them, so they'll be able to tell you, okay, well, this is actually keeping you in track versus this is not. Going back to the other side where I had the resources, at Azad Management, I have a couple of contacts there. If you're interested, I could connect you with them. They are financial planners with them. Let's see. Follow-up questions. Are financial consultants worth it? So financial consultants that I've seen, they've mainly been connected to an already existing wealth management firm. So whether it's like TIA or you have Fidelity, they might have in-house financial consultants. And if they have a CFP, which is a certification of financial planning, then they would be helpful. But it depends on where you are in your journey, because there's this fee that comes with that. Typically, you should go for a flat fee rather than a percentage of your investments, because that takes away from your returns very significantly as the years go by. So um, having a flat fee where you know, okay, I'm paying $100 for this hour, I'm paying 200, whatever it might be, but seeing that upfront would be helpful in the long run, inshallah. Let's see. I'm just so overwhelmed. My ex is paying for things right now. I need to learn how to do it myself. Okay, so maybe you might want to write. I'm gonna start figuring out what those bills are. So just asking him, what are all of those bills? And figuring out, okay, how am I going to pay them and how am I going to structure them? Just getting the numbers would really help, because when people, it's been said as a very common statistic that's thrown out there. I don't know how research based this is actually from, but that when you start budgeting for the first time, or when you start managing your money actively for the first time, if you feel like you have a 30% raise because you actually know where things are going, you see the numbers. And a lot of people have subscriptions that they don't even know of. I think the average American pays about 100 and something a month in subscriptions. So just getting that money and knowing, oh, okay, well, this is what I'm doing is a great place to start. And don't overwhelm yourself by thinking that I'm not doing anything and I could be doing more. Okay. Let's see. What's the next question? Okay. Love that question, Rahma, about short-term wealth building. So there are a lot of options. So if you go back to the resources slide, if you don't mind, please, Hannah. Wahid, they do have, I believe they have some options in short-term investing. So usually when you just create an account with them, they would ask you what your goals are, and they would have specific investment recommendations based on what you said those goals are. So that's an option. This should actually say curate, not the and. So it's curate capital. That's also, it's more of a higher end. They have more like higher barrier to entry when it comes to that specific fund. But they do also have some options if you want higher returns more in the short term. That there have some options there. And there's another place I can't think of, Velos Capital. That brother, he works with real estate, so definitely looking into the halal aspect of that, because a lot of real estate has to do with interest. So, but I know he also works in, it's more of like a short term kind of thing. So that those are some options just to think about. Okay. Robo advisors like Wahid or Wealthfront, worth it or not? I would say so. Wahid, I've personally, my experience with Wahid has been great. They a very lovely team, great people to work with, and they're very, very resourceful as well. So they do have. You could just invest in their ETF directly if you wanted to do it on your own, or you could just have them do it for you. So it depends on how much you care about the specifics, but if you don't want to do anything with it and you just want to have someone manage with it, I would manage the money for you. I would say, yeah, it is worth it. But if you're someone that gets excited by those kind of things and looking into the details of the investment, then um, it might not be worth it for you. So you might want to just do it yourself. How can I find a reliable financial planner? So I would say Azad is a good place to start. Um, a lot of great people there. I think the sister's name is Fatima as well. I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but her name might be Fatima. She's a great financial planner, a lot of experience in that space too. So I hope that answers your question. I don't have a job either. Amna. Yes, it's Azad Management. So they have certified financial planners that you might want to work with. Or you could just ask them all of those questions, right? And inshallah, if we do get an investment um, workshop after this, we'll go through what are the questions that you actually need to ask, right? The performance of an investment and what the expense ratios are, because that's very, very important, because that could really make or break the amount of return that you see over 10, 20, 30 years, or however long you want to invest for. I don't have a job either. Okay, I'm not hear you. So maybe that's, even forget about figuring out what the pills are. Let me even get a job, right? Because when you're in a place where you don't have any income, but you have expenses, you're already starting off on in the negative. So maybe that is the first step. And we get so much, a lot of us get so much contentment or pride and happiness when we have something that we feel like, okay, I'm in control. I'm getting this money. I can actually do something. I can buy myself a candy. I can pay for my own gas. I can buy some food. That is a great step because you feel like, okay, I'm actually earning something. I'm trying, but I'm not getting anything yet. Inshallah, you will. What industry are you looking for, if you don't mind? And in the meantime, I'll actually pull up the questions we got from yesterday. And you guys can send in some more if you have them. I have experience in academia. Oh, okay. So what level of academia? Is it more the college level or K through 12? I thought I was going to do my PhD. Interesting. No, in college, university. Yeah, academia it's definitely a very competitive field, especially at this time of the year, because most people, I mean, they start their job processes a year before, so I can imagine. Yeah. All right, let's go here. Do you have okay? What So I'm just looking through the questions that were sent before the workshop. What investment free what interest-free investment opportunities can we consider? So that would really depend on the specific investment, because sometimes it's not just that something is not investing in something haram that makes it halal, but sometimes even the big funds, they have a huge amount of debt, right? And that debt they're paying interest on. So you even need to go deeper than just what's the surface level of this company, like what services do they actually provide, to what are their what are their numbers. So that's where some of these tools would help. Zoya is one that I really enjoy, because what they do is they have different funds that you can look for, so a lot of funds or even specific stocks, and you can go in there and just put the name like Apple or Microsoft, Google, and they'll show you what percentage of halal, questionable versus haram are their actual numbers. So that way you don't have to like figure out, okay, all the details of it. If you don't like doing that, they already have done that research for you and they're presenting it to you. So that's a great option that you could use, inshallah. The details of it, sometimes they would ask you for a subscription, but if you don't want to, if you just want to use the free version, it's still very helpful. So I really recommend that app in terms of just vetting the halal versus haram um, percentages of a specific investment. Budget and planning. That's not doesn't have a specific question attached to it, but I'm hoping that we cover that today. Any free trainings or workshops that could benefit one's professional development. So It depends on what you're looking for, but you can check like locally what you have available. Muslim Professionals does have a lot of workshops that they tend to host. So if you're looking for anything like that, I think inshallah some of them that they've had in the past have been very beneficial, and I'm sure they'll continue to have some great ones in the future. So I would say keep in touch with what they have coming up. Um, and some of the professionals that they just have there. I mean, on their Slack channel, there's so many professionals, and you could just reach out to them directly to see what beneficial information they could give you if it's in the field that you want to work in. Um, LinkedIn Learning as well. It's very, very helpful if you have access to that. Let's see, and other things like Skillshare if you're looking for a specific thing, but you'd need to vet who the actual teacher is as well. Okay, let's see the next one. What would you recommend for a stay-at-home mom who has been out of the workforce in many years? Okay, so just as from my experience, I mean, I'm not a mom, so I can't speak, but if I was in that situation, here's how I would be thinking about it. Is what's one thing I can get my hand on, right? If you're looking to get back into the workforce, what were you doing before you actually left? Can I get back into that? Or that's one route. The other route is what would I like to try if I want to try something new? Right? If I want to go into a new field that I've never been in, how can I get in the door? So doing a lot of research, people that are already in that field and getting connected to them. Connections, connections, connections. Because they can tell you what this field actually looks like on a daily basis. Is this something I actually want to pursue, or do I just like the idea of it? So thinking about that, what are some of the skills that I'll need in order to excel in this new career path that I'm trying to go through. So I think it's just the little things. It's like, do I want to go back to what I was doing? Do I want to try something new? Or do I want to start my own business? And if so, what are some of my interests? And starting small, right? Doing little things, having a yard sale, for example, if you want to just make a couple of $100, right? So things like that. We're just starting small and then going from there. Connecting with, but that one, regardless of what path you take, I would say connecting with people is definitely one not to skip. Okay, I'm interested in halal investing. I think we've answered that one. In terms of property, is it better to invest in buying a home or land that you can build on or sell later? Great question. Great question. Again, I keep saying this all the time, but it depends on your goals. When do you actually want to build that house? Right? Is it something I want to build right now? Or is it something I want to hold the land and actually wait for a later thing? I'm not in a hurry. So that would be a really important factor to consider. If it's something that's more short term, you might just want to buy the house. Because when you buy just the land, if you're going the mainstream route, then you take a loan on the land and then take a loan on the actual construction as well. And if you're a first time home buyer, that could be very difficult because you don't have experience in terms of homes and there are so many loopholes that you need to go through. Again, connecting with a very experienced person in real estate would be very helpful in doing that. But if you're a first time home buyer, you'd probably want to explore the options of buying a home. And the housing market is very crazy, I know that. But I mean, you can't time the market when it comes to that. Okay, let's take a few more. Is there a group of divorced women here that are talking about your financial journey and things like that? Okay, good question. Anyone in the chat that would like to connect with Amna? Please do share your information. And then let's see. What do you think about America's financial situation in next days? Nowadays, most people are unemployed, including me. I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, it's a very, very difficult time that we're in. I mean, we're not even going to sugarcoat it. It's very difficult. Housing market is very, very challenging right now, especially for first time home buyers. But there's a lot of hope. And I'm not just saying this to, wishy-washy people, but if you look at the stock market, there have been so many records that have been set this year only. So when you look at the S&P 500, which is the standard that's used for how the best companies in the US are doing, you're going to be pleasantly surprised. So when that's where I tend to come from. Because from an investor's perspective, if you're looking in that way, you want to get into investing, that's something that should be driving you and saying, okay, there's hope, there's hope, there's hope. Because there always, markets go up and down. There's no two ways about it. Sometimes we're high, sometimes we're low. But when you have that solid financial foundation, whether the market goes up or down, the stock market goes up or down, you're in a place where and you have that solid foundation, you have that emergency fund. So gas going up a couple of dollars, it's going to pinch you a little bit, but it's not going to break your entire financial plan, right? So having those principles down so that whatever storm comes your way, you're able to ride it. And the earlier you can get into investing, the better. So that's what I would say. There's hope. It's difficult, it's tough, but there's hope. So just keep on going with the plan that you have. So we'll take a few more questions and then we'll end. My email is Salima. Okay, let's see. How to save while paying off debt. So there are different ways to go about this. You could either choose to stop all your savings and just focus on paying off debt, or you could choose to do both of them simultaneously. Either way that you go, it depends on your personal tolerance for uncertainty, right? Because when you stop your savings in order to pay off debt, you do have that anxiety of, okay, what if something comes up? And that's very real, right? Because you're just one flat tire or one bloat engine away from having to go back further into debt. So it would be nice, ideally, to have like some sort of cushion, even if it's not too much, but a few $1,000s in the bank that you can say, okay, this, I'm going to have this right now. It's not my complete emergency fund, but it's something to start with. And then I'm going to double down on paying off debt. Because debt really, especially if it's like credit card debt, it's going to take away a lot. I mean, the price that you pay for prolonging your debt is very, very expensive, because if it's a conventional loan, then there's a lot of interest being accrued. And most interest rates are higher than what you would get on your savings account. And disclaimer, we should not be getting, I'm not promoting interest, please don't take that as a message. But even if you were to earn a return on your on your savings, the cost of the debt is much, much higher in most cases, but not always. So that's something to keep in mind. And it's taking away from your potential to invest and to earn returns that way. So definitely prioritize minimizing debt. Okay, I think that will be all the questions we'll take for now. And Allah knows best. All right.